time on this, granting him invincibility and dealing damage, which is very cool and also useful. She can dish out a ton of pain quickly. Sometimes he can walk straight through the stunned enemy and turn around and start wailing on their back. It's fun to ricochet around the castle as a badass ninja, slicing through anything that stands in your way. All these movements, including his walking speed, are faster than Soma's, quickening the pace. And now, the conclusion. That's right, it's finally here, part 3, the finale of this bonus playable character trilogy covering the Igavania Castlevania games, namely those that strictly adhere to Koji Igarashi's Symphony of the Night. I gotta say, coming to the completion of this project where the original Season 0 video is now totally redone is a little surreal. I mean, that original video is under 8 minutes, and now with the revamped depth, this miniseries is over an hour long. And it's well worth it for one of my favorite video game series. With this being my most popular set of videos, probably more so now with the release of the Dominus Collection, if you stick with it to the end there will be some news about the channel. To review, in part 1 I covered all versions of Symphony of the Night and Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. In part 2 I covered the Castlevania trilogy on the Game Boy Advance, revealing my exceptional fondness for Harmony of Dissonance and Maxim Mode. If you missed them, go check them out now. If you're all caught up, stay tuned because in part 3 I'll cover the DS trilogy, and there's a lot to talk about here. Before getting started, I want to disclose right away that I recorded all this DS footage from an emulator, and the games didn't run as smoothly as they do on real hardware. So my experience running through these games for this video was hampered by some stuttering and slowdown. So if any of my conclusions seem harsh, this may be the culprit. Alright, part 1 contains a more detailed introduction if you want, but now, the conclusion. On the Game Boy Advance, Konami released a Castlevania game each year. When transitioning to the new handheld, they gave themselves a little breathing room, with Dawn of Sorrow's 2005 release coming over 2 years after Aria of Sorrow. Igarashi chose the DS over the PSP to try to capitalize on the success Aria had on Nintendo's GBA, and he thought Aria's systems and story had enough potential to warrant a sequel. Debatable. One sticking point that's instantly apparent is that Ayami Kojima did not design the characters, who were instead drawn in a stereotypical anime style. The mindset there being to try to entice a younger, DS-owning audience. These designs are certainly easier to animate than something by Kojima, lending themselves to that opening video. But there's an undeniable uniqueness to Kojima's designs that give the characters a haunting elegance and texture against which the anime designs just can't compete. The game is set a year after Aria. Soma's control over the chaos inside him allows him to live peacefully with Dracula's powers dormant inside him. A cult headed by Celia wants to pry the Dark Lord's powers from him, so Soma travels to her replica of Castlevania to stop Celia and her cult. All the old faces are here: Yoko, Julius, and Alucard, and alongside Celia are her 2 Dark Lord candidates, Dimitri and Dario. Without going into too much detail, the story is basically Soma has to kill these 2 guys. It works well enough, but when Soma struggles to control Dracula's powers inside him, it strays way too close to retread territory. That pertains to the gameplay as well. Playing as Soma again has a very been there done that feeling, and being forced to grind for specific souls again to see the true ending does nothing positive for the game. And navigating the castle is very annoying, with questionable warp room locations. Like, there's nothing even close to the throne room, which you may have to go back and forth to because you might not know that you need the mirror soul to truly defeat Dario. It also felt like bosses had some really cheap attacks. Again, the manner in which I was playing is probably a factor, but I enjoyed this less than the other games so far. The DS features are a mixed bag. Many will note drawing the seals after killing a boss is awkward, especially if you don't have the stylus out and ready. And using the stylus to break ice blocks is incredibly lame, let's be honest. There is a no required touchscreen mod by Lago Lunatic if you'd like to skip these silly design elements. But having the map open on the top screen is extremely convenient, sometimes too much so. Occasionally I'll find my eyes drifting up to see my map completion, only to get whacked on the bottom screen. It's not a problem, you just have to train yourself to survey the environment for a safe moment to view your map progress. It is enrapturing to see it fill out in real time. But let's get to the main event, Julius Mode. Unlocked either by getting the bad ending or beating the game, this mode is renowned for its unique what-if scenario. What if Soma gave in to the Dark Lord's powers and became Dracula? Well, as we see in the bad ending, Julius would have to stop him. Unfortunately, the mode adheres to the ongoing trend of no story, no cutscenes, besides a couple of brief conversations. That really is a shame because the scenario has a ton of potential. What are Julius, Yoko, and Alucard thinking as they fight through the castle to reach Soma, just so they can destroy him? We don't get any insight outside of their recruitment cutscenes. But what is this mode like? Instead of playing as one character, you can recruit up to a party of 3 characters. You start with Julius, and then Yoko and Alucard can join him, in an homage to Castlevania 3. Julius parallels Trevor Belmont, Yoko parallels Sifa Belnades, and Alucard is still Alucard. There were possibly even plans for Hammer to join as well to parallel Grant and Nasty, but if so, they fell through. Once recruited, you can swap characters by pressing Y. However, only Alucard is required to complete this mode, as shown here. Yes, I did play through the entirety of this mode twice just for this. So you can skip Yoko, but that brings no benefit and she's easy to find. Actually, she brings a lot to the table. They all do, really. Julius is back from Aria, but he's been noticeably nerfed. He plays a lot like his previous incarnation. His regular attack is to whip the vampire killer, he has access to the axe, holy water, cross, and grand cross sub-weapons, he can slide, and he can backdash, though the Omnia of Vanitas is gone. He has a double jump and comet kick, and uses an uppercut for his high jump, though this has been severely downgraded to make Alucard required. The funny thing is, I still found myself using it a lot to speed up platforming. One other major nerf is his speed. He now moves at the same speed as Soma, which at face value has me speechless. However, it lends the mode a feeling of officiality, like it's a true, honest-to-goodness Castlevania adventure. It's just too bad about that story presentation. Yoko is found in her shop and is a valuable ally. Her default attack is to swing the Belnades staff, which has a nice sweeping range and restores some HP with each hit. And if you pay attention, it really adds up, especially since it's your only means of healing outside save rooms and boss orbs. Her ducking attack is a kick, but it still heals her. She double jumps and slides, and her backdash is a cartwheel that moves farther. Yoko's sub-weapons are the spells Holy Flame, which blasts in front of her, Blue Slash, which launches icicles in 5 directions, and Holy Lightning, which homes in on enemies. I mainly stuck with the lightning, although the slash was situationally useful. Didn't find much use for the flame though. While her physical stats are lower than Julius's, she's not weak and her spells can dish out a lot of damage. And then there's Alucard. You meet him in the Garden of Madness after defeating Dario. Unlike in Symphony, Alucard is not customizable. His default attack is to slash the Alucard sword, and he can activate his sword skill, warping behind an enemy and slashing. His sub-weapons are his Hellfire spell, which I barely used, and his Bat form, which is required to pass through the puppet holes. He also has his high jump, which is useful to gain height quickly. His stats seem a little better than Julius's, but Julius can attack faster and has a versatile set of sub-weapons, so I mainly used Alucard for his mobility. He's certainly not impotent, he can hold his own in many situations, but it's hard to see him like this when he stormed the whole castle on his own in Symphony. Honestly, all 3 characters are designed well enough that you can main any one of them and just switch to the others when they're required. This party system serves as a precursor to what we'll find in Portrait of Ruin. But arguably the biggest shakeup is that your party gains experience and can level up, and this will remain true throughout the video. A first for Castlevania BPCs, this means it's fully worth searching through the entire castle because every enemy and boss defeated is a little more XP. If you're having trouble with any bosses, you can grind experience before trying again. Speaking of bosses, they're all the same except the final boss. The last portal room warps you back to the throne room where Soma does the iconic animation, and then you fight him. He teleports around like Dracula before transforming to the beast form from Rondo. After taking him down, you get a brief cutscene of your party standing in front of the crumbling castle. And yes, Yoko's here regardless of whether or not she's in your party. The mode benefits from doubling down on the game's strengths, its gameplay. Add to that well-rounded characters and the ability to level up to help anyone who's struggling, and you have a fun experience. If they had gone all in and fleshed out the mode with cutscenes, this might be the best mode in the entire series, just not quite as fast. Dawn of Sorrow has a boss rush mode, unlocked by fully completing the main game or beating Julius Mode. It plays just like past versions have, so there's not much for someone like me, who doesn't really care about boss rush modes, to discuss. But it's there all the same. This time, hard mode is unlocked by beating the game. It's a new game plus mode, and there's actually a good amount of variation here. Damage dealt, stat growth, and trap damage have all been modified. Enemies have more HP, and some even receive some buffs, like causing status elements or augmenting their attacks. There's something there for players looking for more Dawn of Sorrow, but with extra challenge. But honestly, I'm ready to move on. little over a year after Dawn of Sorrow, Konami released Portrait of Ruin to the world. Perhaps feeling a bit of the same fatigue I had with Dawn, they took this latest game in some new directions, although the anime character designs are still here. It positions itself as a continuation of Castlevania Bloodlines, taking place during World War II, and features a direct descendant of John Morris and characters related to Eric Lecard. It even features a vampiric version of a real-life painter, Victor Bronner, as the antagonist. He's using 8 magic paintings to drain Dracula's power for himself. The paintings can be found around the castle and act like those in Super Mario 64, leading to more linear levels you must play through to find and destroy the boss at the end. This leads to a smaller castle to explore, but I thought it gave you plenty to do, and the paintings effectively break up the pace. And finally, it features the dual playable characters,
Jonathan!
And
Charlotte!
At least partially inspired by the previously mentioned Julius Mode. The characters are much more intertwined though. While you can freely switch between them as the situation requires, you can also call your ally in to use their subweapon, activate a dual crush, or even just bring them in as an AI companion to help you fight enemies. Other partner activities include pushing large boxes and jumping on the other's shoulder for extra height. All this combines into a game that really feels like a breath of fresh air for the series. As you travel through the castle, you have to bear in mind which character has the best matchup versus the various enemies you come across, and swap strategies accordingly. There's even an Egyptian goddess boss, Astarte, who can charm
Jonathan
into attacking
Charlotte!
So you need to switch to her before that can happen to render the charm attack harmless. The varied locations accessed through the paintings are nice too, although some more ideas instead of doubling up on the original 4 would have been preferable. This game features 3 bonus playable character modes. I remember reading somewhere that this is due to it releasing around the 20th anniversary of the series, but I couldn't find a source for that. But even with 3 additional playthroughs, I didn't really tire of exploring this castle and its paintings. In all honesty, this is my favorite of the DS trilogy. But yes, we have 3 modes to cover, so let's jump into it. The first set of bonus playable characters, unlocked by beating the game, are the sisters Stella and Loretta, who play out a prequel scenario in which they attempt to rescue their father, Wind, from Bronner. To reach him, they must defeat the 8 portrait bosses. In an attempt to fully utilize the DS's capabilities, their attacks are fully controlled through the touchscreen. I actually dusted off my old DS to play through this mode and get an authentic experience. But this footage is through an emulator, so if it looks like I'm struggling, that's why. Stella's slash attack is activated by drawing lines. Quicker lines equal heavier damage. This deals physical damage anywhere on screen. Switching to Loretta, her ice attack is activated by merely touching the screen, sending a steady stream of ice magic in that direction, dealing magic damage. Both attacks cost MP. You may have noticed their unique movement. Both sisters fly around using the D-pad, costing MP when off the ground. Their saving grace is that their MP recovery is quite high when grounded, so the strategy forms into staying near the ground as often as possible. Because Portrait of Ruin brought back life max-ups and MP max-ups, the sisters and the other BPCs can grab those, alongside gaining experience and leveling up. First things first, this mode plays quite well on original hardware. The sisters move a little slowly, but their attacks are instantaneous, and recovering MP on the ground ensures you're hardly ever unable to attack. It almost feels like an escort mission, where you guide the sisters' positioning to keep them out of danger, while you decimate enemies as soon as they appear on screen with the stylus. And I do mean decimate. The rapidity and damage output of your attacks means that nothing stands a chance as the sisters soar through the castle. It's a bit repetitive, but the journey is over so soon I didn't mind, and appreciated them trying something new. I would recommend playing it on a DS if you can. The next mode is unlocked by getting the real ending after purifying the sisters with Sanctuary. It features returning characters Richter and Maria, in her child form, and they work in tandem just like Jonathan and Charlotte. Both can backdash, double jump, and slide, and can cycle through their assortment of sub-weapons. Richter still sports the dagger, axe, cross, holy water, holy book, and grand cross, while Maria is aided by her animal friends Phoenix, Byakko, Holy Dragon, and Genbu. Richter controls a lot like he did in Symphony of the Night. His default attack is to whip the vampire killer, which he can brandish. He runs by default now, making him the fastest character in this outing, and can now double jump. His backflip is easier to perform, though I still don't really know when to use it, and his high jump is back. After a slide, he can perform a dropkick. His blade dash has been renamed Tackle, and I still struggle with the fighting game styled input. He also has the special attack's Spinning Kick. In combo, the one downgrade is that he can no longer use item crashes. Overall, Richter is fast and hits hard. He's less of a glass cannon now since you can level up, so it's really easy to just control him for most of the playthrough. Maria seems to play similarly to her Rondo of Blood incarnation. She attacks by sending doves, which fly out and return to her, which is easy to spam. Her Phoenix sends 2 red birds up at a diagonal, who then circle back to her. Byakko sends a cat forward to damage enemies. Holy Dragon launches a dragon forward. And Genbu covers her in a turtle shell, increasing her constitution and mind stats. A button combo activates her Guardian Knuckle attack. With her limited move pool compared to Richter, the idea is for Maria to spam her sub-weapons and Guardian Knuckle, which explains why her MP recovery is about 5 times faster than Richter's. A dominant strategy is to use up MP with Richter's sub-weapons, then swap to Maria to recover MP, and then swap back. This mode reminds me a lot of Maxim mode, fast-paced high-octane action. With Richter's movement and speed, and a decent knowledge of the map layouts, you can barrel through the castle and its portraits in almost no time flat. Sure, you have to be a little careful at lower levels so you don't die, but your damage output and sheer rapidity of attacks means nothing is safe from your onslaught. Most will probably main Richter, but Maria's no slouch either. You can spam her doves as fast as you can press the button. Astarte stood no chance. This mode is really freaking fun, especially if you're partial to this castle map and love the idea of zooming through it. I'm not even that good at speedrunning type playstyles, but I was carving it up and loving every second of it. I still prefer Maxim mode with his dash and screw attack, but I think we found a close second. The last BPC of this game is an interesting one. Arguably this game's joke mode, but it's definitely more than that. Old Axe Armor mode is unlocked by defeating at least 1,000 Old Axe Armors, and then defeating Dracula. This is the single mode where you control only one character throughout, the Old Axe Armor. First seen in Rondo of Blood, but now without a shield. Your arsenal is therefore slightly more limited. Its basic attack is an axe swing downwards. The armor can backdash, double jump, and high jump, and during these moves the armor holds its axe aloft, and can deal damage with it, though it has a small hitbox. You can even stand in that position, which can quickly deal a lot of damage if positioned correctly, though I never found much use for it. The armor only has 2 sub-weapons, the axe, which functions as usual for playable characters, and the puppet to get through tight spaces. Although, I don't think you ever actually need it because the armor can move through tight spaces normally. Finally, the armor has 3 special attacks, the running axe, smash, and deadly axe. But again, I never found much use for them. The Old Axe Armor's speed is akin to a main character's playthrough, and honestly, that's what this mode feels the closest to. True, you can easily sequence break, but the armor feels a little dangerous to control since you have to get so close to enemies to hit them. That's really the meat of the mode, especially in boss battles. Can you keep yourself out of harm's way while still delivering enough damage? It's a constant dance that really requires you to stay on your toes. But once you get the positioning down and maybe snag a few level ups, the armor can dish out the pain pretty respectfully. It's certainly not my favorite mode with its slower pace and repetitive gameplay, but it's a solid test of skill for those who enjoy a challenge. Portrait of Ruins Boss Rush mode has 3 levels, the first being available from the start. The other 2 must be unlocked by receiving the good ending. The sisters, Richter and Maria, and the Old Axe Armor can be used, so long as you finish their respective modes. So if that's something you want to do, you can. Hard mode here is unlocked by getting the good ending. A New Game Plus mode, the only stat modification is reduced damage output. This mode introduces a level cap that can be selected from the beginning. You can select levels 50, 25, or 1, and your base file receives a special item upon completion. But enemies again are buffed and have their behavior augmented, and more extensively so. Almost 2 years later, Konami released what is chronologically the final Igavania Castlevania and the final mainline Castlevania without Lords of Shadow in the title, Order of Ecclesia. We've returned to the gothic horror art direction of the characters, although Ayami Kojima was not involved. But the designs do at least bring back that haunting elegance and texture that the anime designs lost. The story involves the mysterious organization Order of Ecclesia, who seek to prevent Dracula's return. We meet 3 of the Order's members. Shinoa, who is tasked by the founder Barlow to chase down a rogue chief researcher, Albus, who had thwarted the Order's plans. The story unfolds rather predictably from there. You'll never guess. Barlow was really the bad guy the whole time. Igarashi and his team clearly wanted to spice up the formula for this one, again making a large pivot from prior entries. They took Portrait's separate painting locations idea and expanded on it, so instead of one centralized map, the areas are broken up and spread out amongst a world map, throughout which Shinoa chases Albus. Typically, finding the exit in one area unlocks the next area for you to explore, with perhaps a bonus step of talking to a villager first. Some maps are literally hallways, connecting one important location to another. Others form a respectable mini-dungeon, but are still dwarfed by the painting locations from Portrait of Ruin, so exploration takes a back seat in this title. The way story beats play out and new locations unlock feels very herky-jerky and restrictive, with countless return trips to the village to save and refill your hearts. You don't even enter Castlevania till very near the end of the game. I wouldn't be surprised if many players didn't even know it's in the game because of how late it appears, and getting there is easier said than done. The gameplay here is certainly different. Shinoa doesn't even equip weapons, instead absorbing glyphs through a special tattoo on her back, through which she does everything. Glyphs can be found in special statues, rewarded for defeating enemies, and even stolen from enemies while they're casting a spell. Some even lie out in the open. These glyphs form the basis of her weapons, glyph union attacks, and special abilities. Therefore, using weapons costs MP, which recovers fairly quickly, but when it runs out, you can't attack. Apparently they wanted you to use a lot of attacks because enemies by and large are damage sponges. Thus, it's not unusual to run out of MP as you chip away at health bars, and then spend a few seconds dodging or hopping around as it refills enough to finish the job. Learning weaknesses is a must, as is configuring your 3 loadouts and swapping between them as necessary. And many enemies act more aggressively than in previous entries. It's not uncommon to get swarmed, especially if you try to run past encounters, and the hits add up quick. You also have glyph union attacks at your disposal, extra powerful attacks that vary depending on your weapon glyphs. These consume hearts, which are now separate from MP, which forces you to ration the number of uses in a map, since recovering hearts via drops from breakable lamps and other set dressings is extremely slow. Ultimately, I'm not a huge fan of these changes. You never really find a weapon glyph, besides maybe the axe, that's impressive or really fun to use, so you kind of just make do with what you've got. And then running out of MP and swapping loadouts interrupts the flow a little too often to ignore. Let's just say I'm not surprised Igarashi made Bloodstain's Miriam play like Soma instead of Shinoa. That brings us to our final bonus playable character mode, unlocked by beating the game, and this is another mode that features only one character, Albus. Movement-wise, he has the standard slide, backdash, double jump, and high jump, but his warp ability allows him to teleport anywhere on screen with a simple tap, assuming you can spare the MP. It's a little cumbersome when your hands are on the controls, but when used sporadically, it's a novel dodging method. Albus is an expert marksman, using his magical firearm Agartha for most of his attacks, which allows him to pick off enemies from across the screen. His regular attack is a standard shot, and you can hold the button down for rapid fire. He can also fire his optical shot, which is good for hitting enemies just above or below and right behind him. Then, his max shot fires a giant ball of spite, which is useful because of how much of the screen it covers, good for those hard to hit enemies. The only other MP attack is tossing out a torpid crystal to trap an enemy. I never used this. His final attack, the quadruple Ignis, costs 3 hearts and sends Albus in a spinning kick through the air. It might be good, but the way it launches Albus across the screen feels ungainly, so I didn't use this much either. Honestly, I just relied on the 3 shot types and the warp, and that got the job done. On paper, Albus Mode is pretty solid. His power allows him to kill enemies quickly, especially if you're leveling up, and his long-range playstyle is unique amongst his peers. He also alleviates some of the issues I have with Shinoa. All of his firing attacks have pretty immediate use cases, and with only one loadout, you don't have any swapping to do. And with just a couple MP max-ups, he never really runs out of MP, thus playing as Albus has a nice flow to it. His warp ability is also nifty, presenting a unique way of dodging enemy attacks. Unfortunately, he's not all that fast, moving at Shinoa's speed, so his traversal is comparable, although in his case enemies don't slow him down. And the map design hasn't changed, but more importantly the map sequence doesn't change, i.e. you still have to exit the Clytus channel to unlock the Monera prison island, so sequence breaking is out. This really snuffs out a lot of the potential of this mode. Trying oddball or challenging routings keep follow-up playthroughs engaging. Remember going through this section as Shinoa? Now do the exact same thing as Albus, only without the difficulty. This doesn't make him a bad bonus playable character, just not the most exciting one. Order of Ecclesia's Boss Rush mode is unlocked by defeating Dracula. You can play as either Shinoa or Albus through 2 courses, one with the bosses from before entering Castlevania, and one with the bosses from inside the castle. Like I said, not my thing, but if it's yours, have fun. The hard mode unlocked by beating the game works a lot like the previous 2. Reduced damage, buffed and augmented enemies, sped up traps, and level caps that reward certain items. Honestly, the base game is hard enough, so I don't know why you need this. But I'm sure it's someone's cup of tea. To wrap up this trilogy, let's talk briefly about the Castlevania Dominus Collection. Released August of 2024, this packages the DS trilogy alongside the arcade game Haunted Castle and its remake, for some reason. Apparently you can mess around with the positioning and size of the 2 screens, and even display both upper screens simultaneously, meaning the map and status screens, which is pretty cool. They also let you map certain buttons to touchscreen controls for things like Magic Seals and Sisters Mode. It has quick save and rewind functionality, and even HD quality music, which is what I've been using here. I was doubtful we'd ever see this collection, but it seems like a quality package. I just wish they would have tacked on Harmony of Despair instead of Haunted Castle. I don't even really know what Harmony of Despair is, it just seems more thematically appropriate. That's it! That covers the BPCs from all of the Igavania games, at least until Bloodstained: The Scarlet Engagement comes out. Bonus video on that someday! There were a lot of different ideas popping up throughout this DS trilogy. Dawn of Sorrow gave us a Castlevania 3 tribute with the team-up in Julius Mode. Portrait of Ruin tried to outdo everyone else with 3 bonus playable character modes, the Sisters making use of the touchscreen, Richter and Maria harkening back to Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night, and Old Axe Armor invoking challenge through basic controls. And Order of Ecclesia worked in a ranged character with Albus. With so many BPC options throughout these 3 videos, there's bound to be at least one that really clicks with you, so let me know which one you prefer. I do have another bonus playable character video planned from a different series, but if there's one you'd recommend I check out, let me know. And special thanks to all those who stuck it out and made it through each part of the series. Now before I go, I do have a channel update. Just remember, as I've said previously, this channel is a hobby of mine. My goal is to make the kind of videos I'd like to watch. The goal is not to make money or make this my day job. Anyway, the announcement is that this is the final video of Season 1. My next video will begin Season 2 of the channel. On your end, that mainly means you can expect some channel assets to be altered to mark the change. On my end, I'm launching into this new season with a goal, to hit 1,000 subscribers. The driving factor here is motivation. Actually dropping a video and seeing what people have to say about it is what compels me to continue working on these projects. And I think 1,000 subscribers is kind of the benchmark for steady engagement. I'm not even that far off in the grand scheme of things, but it will be a relatively big push. I'm thinking, to celebrate the big 1K, I'll launch a new series, comparing the levels in the OG Spyro trilogy to Reignited, and probably ranking them too. It sounds like a fun way to say thanks and build some excitement throughout Season 2. I really do appreciate all of you who made it this far. You make all this worth it. Thanks again for checking this out, and I hope to catch you in the next one.